throw, that ball's out, that's live! Back the other way, Sam Hubbard! The Cincinnati Kid! Hubbard's got a convoy! Chased by Andrews! At the 30, the 20, he will score!
To the end zone, down the field, and it is deflected, and gone! Touchdown! A.J. Green!
Goes back to throw, men are coming late, looks right down the middle, there's Eddie Brown, he has it at the 35 to the 30, he may go, 10-5, touchdown!
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up.
Yeah.
It is good.
Corey Dillon, he's gone. The knockout punch, you're looking at it. 65 yards.
And they're back to throw as the blitz is on. Goes long, intended for Collinsworth. He has it down to the 20, touchdown! And Chris Collinsworth.
Throwing the long ball. Deep down the field. Chad Johnson's got it. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Look at Chase go. Oh my goodness, what a gear he just found. Chase for the touchdown. Wow, Chase is on the case.
It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. How about that?
There we go. Chatterbox Bengals, and finally a win. All I've ever wanted is a post-game show with Craig Sandlin following a Bengals win, and I finally get it. After all this time, it's finally here. Glad to be here after a win. It feels good. I got scared there for a minute. I was starting to believe that I was actually the curse. And now I get to ask you this question with the hopes of a great answer. Craig, how are you doing?
We're doing much better tonight.
Oh,
than
it
we
feels
have in
good.
the last 6 weeks, my friend. Oh man, you know it's crazy because it felt like a must win, and it was a game that coming in you were like, all right, this is a game where the Bengals really should dominate. Daniel Jones is not that great of a quarterback. Yeah. The Giants are going to be out. Several weapons out with Malik Neighbors out for a concussion. Devin Singletary ruled out. You knew that it was going to be a challenge offensively with this Giants front four that they have. It's weird. Like, I mean, first and foremost, obviously good to get a win and get back on the right track. I mean, the exciting part is the defense, right? I mean, holding the Giants to 7.
Right.
We're going to talk a little bit about missed opportunities and stuff like that over the course of this show. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you're back in the win column. You're 2 games back of a wild card spot behind the Steelers, who we still don't believe in. Justin Fields did not look great again today.
Right.
And so, all that matters is you get the win in the column, and that's what they did today.
That's right. 2-4 now. Obviously opening the season 1-4. Good to get back on track. A slightly easier schedule, at least on paper, for the next few weeks as the Bengals look to continue to salvage this season after digging themselves such a big hole. You go to Cleveland next week, who continues to look inept on offense, cannot do anything. And then the Eagles and Raiders at home before the second bout with the Baltimore Ravens. So certainly a chance here for the Bengals to hopefully keep some of this momentum. I mean, I guess defensive momentum and some punting momentum. Ryan Rico continues to be great, and carry that on and just keep winning. So before we get into the key players and everything else, thank you to everyone who's joining us here tonight. Make sure you like the stream and celebrate this Bengals win. But tonight, for the Bengals, certainly not exactly the stat lines we would expect from a Bengals win. I think all of us kind of unanimously expected if the Bengals were going to pull this one out and get back on the right side of things, it was going to be another big day from Joe Burrow, another big day from Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and the offense scoring 30 again, like we've come to expect. But that wasn't the case. the guys still did get their own, and they were able to make a difference in the game. Joe Burrow, 19 of 28 for 208 yards, 2 rushes for 57 yards and a touchdown, including a 47-yard touchdown run, which is the longest run of Joe Burrow's career. Chase Brown had 10 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown late in the game to ice it. Zach Moss, 6 carries, just 13 yards, and then 1 fumble at the end of the game. That certainly scared almost everybody. Jamar Chase, 5 catches and 72 yards, held pretty quiet in the first half, but able to wake up basically on just 1 possession for the Bengals there at the end of the game. T. Higgins caught all 7 of his targets for 77 yards, 11 yards a grab. Not much more you can ask for out of those guys. Obviously, the Bengals offense only scored 17 points, and that's something I want to get into here in a bit, but I think the thing that we need to start with is the thing that we've started every show with, but the other side, and it's the defense. We continue to kill the defense. I think if you look back at the post games of every single loss the Bengals have had so far this season, defense is right there at number 1, and it's always negative. We're always killing them. The pass rush is bad. The coverage is bad. This guy can't play. This guy needs a new sub off the bench. Well, today, the defense played good. And then a lot of people in the chat the entirety of the game were saying, well, it's the Giants. Let's calm down. Well, no. Because I've seen this defense allow everyone to move the ball like a hot knife through butter. I'm going to get excited when they stop anyone. I don't care who it is. The defense looked very, very good tonight. It was very reassuring to see a game where you really only allow 1 drive. I mean, the one time they got in the red zone, you force an interception right by Jermaine Pratt, and then a touchdown, a pretty methodical touchdown drive there towards the end of the game. But outside of that, the defense played great. Held Daniel Jones to just 200 yards passing, under 200 net when you include the sacks. Tyrone Tracy, just 2.9 yards on the ground rushing, was able to make a difference in the receiving game. But this Bengals defense looked really good, better than they have all year long. And it's against an offense that I know the Giants aren't exactly a top-of-the-league team, but they've been able to score some points. 29 points, last week against the Seahawks, 15 points against the Cowboys, 21 against the Browns, and then 18 points in a loss to the Commanders where they didn't have their quarterback or kicker. That's 3 touchdowns and 3 missed 2-point conversions. So this is an offense that has been able to get some production throughout this season, and the Bengals defense shut them down.
Well, the thing that stood out to me is that you have a fully healthy front 4 now. And so
Right.
The Bengals, for the first time, it felt like all season, were able to get consistent pressure on Daniel Jones. Obviously, you already touched on it, but the run defense significantly improved over the last 2 weeks. They held Derrick Henry to 50 yards in regulation. Again, tonight, Tyrone Tracy, 17 carries for only 50 yards. Those are 2 really good backs, and the Bengals front 4 really stepped up to the challenge. I felt like, certainly still some holes in the secondary a little bit that will continue to show themselves.
Right.
But I think when this front 4 can get pressure like they did tonight, it really opens up an opportunity where that secondary won't be gashed as much. We were seeing early on in the season where the secondary was getting beat deep time and time again.
That's right.
But now that the front 4 can get pressure, there's not enough time for those plays to develop the way that they were early on in this year. And so, you get Sheldon Rankins back. He made some plays that really stood out on tape to me early on. We talked about, other guys that got back last week that added to their defensive front. And BJ Hill tonight, I felt like, again, another standout performance from him, and just shows what he can bring on the pass rush side. And I think for the Bengals defense moving forward, the biggest thing is just going to be putting that quarterback under pressure and not allowing them to sit back there and pick apart the secondary, because I don't think that the secondary necessarily is much better. I just think that the front 7 and the front 4 got the pressure that enabled the secondary to kind of hold their men for long enough.
Yeah, and I think that's something that over the last few weeks we might not have given enough credit to, is the injuries and the lack of Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill, and how the front office knew that this interior pass rush was going to be a problem, and they went out and got arguably the best interior pass rusher on the open market this offseason in Sheldon Rankins, and he wasn't playing, and we saw that continue to be an issue. And I felt like a lot of times, myself included, were talking down on this defensive line and on this defense as a whole, and we hadn't even seen the whole group out there yet. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. It is just a game against the Giants, a team that I thought we were going to beat much more easily than we did. But I still think there was a lot of positives to take away from this game. And the main one for me, obviously, you already touched on Rankins, but the other big fella there in the middle, B.J. Hill, going back to the team that drafted him, the New York Giants, and really making a difference in this game. I know Jermaine Pratt, if you look at the stat sheet, has the INT, but that one goes to B.J. Hill, putting his head in the chest of Daniel Jones, firing that ball up in a wonky way, a limp duck, if you will, and Jermaine Pratt able to come down with it and really change the game there early with the Giants in the red zone. And they weren't ever really able to get anything going again until late in the game when they were able to capitalize for a touchdown. But man, B.J. Hill really made a difference. And if we can get that level of play out of Hill and Rankins and Hendrickson this year, 2 sacks for Hendrickson today, if we can get that level of play out of those 3 guys for the rest of this year, this defense is going to be much better than we've seen through the first 5 weeks. And again, I'm not exactly banking on the offense scoring 17 points a whole lot more the rest of the year. So if this defense can find even a middle ground between this and the 35s of a few weeks ago, I'm going to be very optimistic about the way this team's trending.
Yeah, I was really hoping for one of those like old-fashioned just ass whoopings.
I know.
It's after 11 on the East Coast. I can say ass whoopings, right?
That's right.
You know, I was really looking forward to coming on this show with like a 33-10 just beat down.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
But you know what? I think there's a lot of solace that can be taken in knowing that this defense can and has the ability to step up when needed. And again, it's the Giants. We'll take it for what it's worth. I thought the Giants probably left 9 points on the board and really changed the outcome of this game. They missed the 2 field goals on another deep drive. They went for it on 4th and 3, didn't get it on a nice play by DJ Turner on that diving pass breakup. So I thought that there were points that were left on the board by the Giants, but it was very clear that Brian Daboll, really from the end of the first half all the way through, was coaching at a different level. And at the end of the day, the defense stepped up when it mattered. I felt like, I mentioned that DJ Turner pass breakup.
Right.
They got some big plays when it mattered. Pressures when it mattered, turnovers when it mattered. That I want to make sure that we spend some time and call out the interception that Daniel Jones threw. I mean, that was a BJ Hill pressure that hit Daniel Dimes as he was throwing it and made a really easy pick for Jermaine Pratt. So. Right. It was an ugly game on both sides of the ball, if we're being honest. As we were going, I was highlighting all the mistakes by both sides, and it turns out that my Google Doc is more highlighted than not now at this point. It feels like, but at the end of the day, it's good to know that this defense has it in them. And like you said, the schedule coming up is not one where you're facing an overly difficult offense on paper, and so it gives you a little bit of faith going into this little stretch that you have here where we talked about it. I really want to see the Bengals go 5-0. I want to see them. Obviously, they took care of business tonight against the Giants. We've got the Browns next week. They are abysmal. Now, obviously, Nick Chubb gets back, so there will be some talk about the front seven again, but then the Eagles, who haven't looked great, the Raiders don't look great. And then it really comes down to that Ravens. I want to see a win in that game. I think it's necessary in order to get to where we want to be.
Right.
But this is a good momentum starter. We talk about in games where you kind of have to get a drive starter sometimes, and you just get, pick up 4, 5, 6 yards just to kind of get something going. Zach Taylor did that a couple times tonight. Tonight felt like a drive starter. We got the easy win, and now we move forward. We've got 4 more quote unquote downs that we need to win. And it starts next week with the Cleveland Browns, a place that this Cincinnati team hasn't won in a very long time.
That's right. 2 good chat stats before we move on. Love when the chat contributes. This one from whoever's voicing behind the Chatterbox account right now. But the first road Sunday night win for the Bengals since 1992. Long time since the Bengals have picked up a road Sunday night win, and Joe Burrow able to do it there. I saw a stat earlier this week that the Bengals have only ever had 4 Sunday night wins in the history of their franchise. All 4 of those
they were one in
with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, they were 1-9 in their last 10 Sunday Night Football games.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it was good to get off the snide there. We talked about it on Thursday night. I know you were busy hobsnobbing it up with the offensive line, but Cincinnati coming into this game 1 for 9 in its last 10 Sunday Night Football games. Burrow was 1-1. Daniel Jones 1-14 coming into tonight in primetime games overall. He falls to 1-15 now. There was a lot of talk in this offseason about the Giants replacing Daniel Jones. He's had some highlights for sure, but he doesn't necessarily look like a quarterback ready to challenge for a playoff spot for sure.
Daniel Jones has an impressive way of, how do I say this, stinking really bad for a long time and then getting to the last possible point when they can cut him and being fine. And then you just can't move on. I mean, how ready were Giants fans and Giants brass seemingly to move on from Daniel Jones before that magical playoff win against the Vikings a few years ago? And then you extend him, and now we're talking about 2 years, and you can get rid of the last 2 on his contract. And now he's putting together a pretty decent season, at least up until tonight. Statistically, still a fine game tonight on all accounts. But funny that he's seemingly playing his way back into the conversation of being the Giants starter next year when that was all the way out the window in the preseason. But the last chat stat I have for us here is from our friend Rick S, and it was voided at the end of the game by the Chase Brown touchdown, but still an interesting stat nonetheless. The Bengals are 1-166 in games scoring 10 points or less. Tonight would have potentially been win number 2 had Chase Brown not punched in that late touchdown. But just funny to think that in the history of this franchise, never really been able to have success in low-scoring games, it seems.
Well, I mean, the defense hasn't been good enough to win low-scoring games, right? So it doesn't necessarily surprise me. There were moments that I still, think that the defense didn't necessarily step up. I mean, there was let's see, when was this? This was right after halftime. The Giants went on that long drive, 16 plays, 79 yards, it was 4th down and short. I don't remember exactly what it was. And Tracy got the carry and Joseph Asai met him in the backfield and probably could have taken him down for a loss, but Tracy slipped through the tackle, and missed tackles has been a storyline for this entire season. Zach Moss fumbles as he's going in towards the end zone. Mistakes after mistakes. So definitely some things to clean up, but I think at the end of the day, you take the win and you move on. And anytime you win in the National Football League is a good day. So, rest up and get ready for Cleveland.
And I think that's the main takeaway, especially with where this team's at right now, is wins are wins, and that's what we're focused on at this point. But with how much the defense has struggled all year, obviously a great night tonight, and that's what we like to highlight first. There was a little bit of cause for concern, at least on my end, with the offense puttering as much as they did tonight. Just 17 points against the Giants defense that I know has an elite pass rush, the most sacks out of any NFL team, and that's certainly not going to change after tonight. They were able to get after Joe Burrow and cause a lot of problems, but just 17 points for this offense. Joe Burrow really struggled outside of a few big plays, and then a major touchdown run, a 50-yard touchdown run on a blown coverage that allowed the Bengals to score early in the game and was their only score for the vast majority of the game. So certainly not what we've come to expect out of the 2024 Bengals. Seemed like a little bit of a Freaky Friday situation with the offense and defense switching roles today, but hopefully the offense can just bounce back at the end of the day after a win. I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on the side of the ball I have the most faith in. Joe Burrow's 19 of 28 for 208 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. That's fine. I mean, that's certainly not what you've come to expect out of Joe Burrow, but that's good football. That can win football games, so that's okay. But I certainly worry about this defense because we're not going to get a whole lot of 7-point games. And when you don't get 7-point games, these stat lines don't result in wins. And for this Bengals team to sneak into the playoffs and keep any kind of hopes alive sitting at 2-4 now, you're going to have to win a lot of games. The vast majority of your remaining games, you're going to have to come out on top. Every game you're favored in, you're going to have to win, and you're probably going to have to upset a team or two. So you're not going to be able to have games where the offense and defense both have slow days. And luckily today, the defense played one of their best games of the season when the offense decided to take one off. But I don't know how many more opportunities we're going to have when one side of the ball can take the day off and we still be okay. I mean, that's basically what happened against the Ravens. One side of the ball took the day off. And that was too good of a football team that we weren't able to overcome it and get the win. I think if you're playing someone much better than the Giants, the Bengals lose today, and it's because of the offense. And that's not something that's okay with this Bengals team. You can't have games that are relying on the offense to figure it out. The offense needs to be figured out so that every Sunday we sit here and hold our breath about the defense. We're supposed to have one of these things taken care of. And today, to see that falter a little bit, I'm not going to get too worked up about it, but definitely not the best thing to see, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can both agree that most games this defense is not good enough to sustain an offensive result of
right.
punt, fumble. So, that 6-drive little streak there from the second drive of the game all the way through the first drive of the second quarter, definitely not good enough. And when I look back on it again, I talked about it earlier, it's really about mistakes, right? So we've got the Zach Moss fumble. The next drive, Joe Burrow with that intentional grounding where he lost 14 yards on first down and immediately sets them behind the marker there. The next drive, Jamar Chase drops what should have been a first down ball. The Bengals ended up having to punt. The next drive, Azeez Ojulari picks up 2 sacks on Joe Burrow. They have to punt again. The next drive, Zach Moss fumbles again. It just, the list goes on about mistakes. And then the next drive, Chase Brown TD gets called back because of the hold, whether you agree with the hold or not, on Cordell Volson. So, it's just time and time again where they're just kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And the other thing that I'm interested to watch the film on is I do not understand some of the blocking schemes that were called tonight by Zach Taylor.
Right.
I'm sure you talked about it during the broadcast, but there were multiple plays where they had Brown pulling around and leaving Gesicki one-on-one with Brian Burns.
Mike Gesicki on Brian Burns is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. The dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Brian Burns going against O linemen is second in the NFL in time to pressure at 2.19 seconds with 14 pressures and 3 sacks on the year. I guarantee you, if you put him up against a tight end, he's going to do that every single time. And he showed it tonight. The other thing I don't understand
about that is you have 2 other tight ends on the roster who are exponentially better blockers than Mike Gesicki. If you are going to run that kind of play where Gesicki had no intention of running a route, he was blocking, why do you not use Eric All or Drew Sample and at least give the play a chance to work? Still not thrilled about the philosophy of Brian Burns against a Drew Sample or an Eric All, but certainly gives the Bengals a better chance to operate some kind of play and not just have it blown up right from the start.
Well, at least 3 of them that I could remember, Brian Burns was lined up over or inside of Orlando Brown. And so it's not even like he was lined up outside and Gesicki should have had a path to him and it just went by him. Like, literally, Brian Burns just had a straight path to the backfield with nobody trying to block him. And it just, it's just never going to work on a guy of his talent. There's a reason that the Giants went out and signed Brian. Did they sign him or trade for him? I don't remember. Nonetheless, they went out and got Brian Burns at a heavy price tag and then extended him afterwards. Like, that can't happen. I mean, and again, that just goes back to play calling, Joe Burrow pre-snap reads. Like, something has to happen in those situations where they recognize that and say, this isn't going to work. We got to get out of that.
That's right. And I think that's the thing right now is the Bengals are trying to figure out how exactly to most efficiently operate this offense. And a thing I think they've started to rely on a lot is having one of the best offensive lines in football. Because all season this season so far through the first 5 weeks, Joe Burrow has been upright, that jersey has been clean, and the offensive line has been playing at an incredibly high level. Orlando Brown had been one of the best offensive linemen in every metric in football so far this year. Alex Kappa had been putting together a career season. Amarius Mims had showed promise through his first few starts. But today, it seemed like a massive step back. Obviously, the Giants, a very, very good team when it comes to pass rush, leading the NFL in sacks coming into tonight. That's certainly not going to change after tonight. They were able to make Joe Burrow's life hell. He was sacked 4 times for a loss of 25, and it felt a lot worse than that. There was consistently pressure in his face. He was consistently running for his life. Plenty of plays that were true old vintage wow Joe Burrow plays, and that's because we were back to the old vintage lack of blocking by the offensive line, the quick pressures that almost immediately got home and forced Joe Burrow to play off of his heels and not off of his toes. And I think that's why we saw a lot of, I don't want to say fear, but I guess anxiousness from Joe Burrow and having to operate so quickly. I think by the time the game progressed on, we saw a quarterback that had no faith that he was going to have time in the pocket. We saw a quarterback who thought he had 1 read, 2 read, gone, or he's going to get hit. We saw him get hit hard multiple times. And I don't care how great a quarterback you are, how great your brain is as a competitive athlete, that's going to get in your head at some point. And you're not going to be able to overcome that when you're standing in the pocket. Getting abused back there is going to cause a problem. That's why we always talk about that Tennessee Titans playoff game as one of the most impressive games of all time. Because Joe Burrow was brutalized for 60 minutes and was able to still lead his team to a win. I thought those days were behind us, but after tonight, I might not be so sure. If we play elite pass rushing teams, this offensive line scared me for the first time tonight because I was really, really optimistic in this group, and I thought they had really figured something out and had taken a step to being one of the best groups in the league. But alas, that might not be the case when matched up with top shelf talent.
Well, we knew it was going to be a battle of the trenches, and quite frankly, the Bengals defensively won the battle of the trenches, and the Giants defensively won the battle of the trenches. And initial PFF grades on the offensive line are not pretty, Jacob. I'm sure this isn't going to come as a surprise to you, but the 2 guards both graded below a 58. Ted Karras, 66.5, Amarius Mims, 64.9, Orlando Brown Jr., 64.8, Cordell Volson, 57.1, and Alex Kappa, 49.0 on the initial PFF grades. And quite frankly, it just kind of confirms what we already thought we knew based on what we saw during the game. I don't think any of that is a surprise. But at the end of the day, when you're facing a front four like the Giants have, and you're going up against, a Browns defense next week that also has been pretty good historically, the offensive line is going to have to step up, or Zach Taylor is going to have to design plays in a better way that set them up for wins versus leaving Mike Gesicki one-on-one with Brian Burns.
Right. And I think at the end of the day, most of us have faith in the tackles, and where a lot of our fear comes into play with this offensive line is the middle, the Karras, Kappa, Volson trio in the middle. And at the end of the day, you're not going to play a lot of interior pass rushers. And let me take that back. You're not going to play any interior pass rushers that are anywhere close to Dexter Lawrence the rest of the year. He is the best in the league, and he's on a different level from everyone else. So he was able to terrorize this game, absolutely. Outlier. The problems he was going to be able to cause, outlier. My issue from this game is Brian Burns, because we're going to go in the AFC North. We're going to play the Browns twice. We're going to play the Steelers twice. They have Myles Garrett. They have TJ Watt. If you can't beat the dominant edge rusher, the one dominant edge rusher, if you can't take care of him, you're going to struggle against those teams. I don't care about Deshaun Watson and Justin Fields playing quarterback. We signed Orlando Brown to erase one edge rusher a game. Tonight, he didn't do that. For the entirety of the season up until this point, he has. So I still have a lot of faith in this offensive line. But like you said, both of those tackles grades being in the 60s, that's just not going to cut it. And I know, PFF, whatever. Watch the game. You can see that they didn't play well tonight. I mean, the offensive line was abysmal, and it's something that I didn't think I was going to have to say on the show after the first 5 weeks. I thought this was a position group that was a massive strength of this team, and I still think it might be. But I'm gonna put this to the side just because of how good this Giants defensive line is, but definitely something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on as the season progresses.
Well, the other thing that I want to talk about is, again, not to pile on certain people, but from the very get-go, it didn't feel like Zach Taylor was doing anything to neutralize that Giants rush.
Yeah,
we talked about it during the week about wanting to set it up through runs, or, people on social media were calling for draw plays or screen passes, do something to try and slow down that Giants rush. And I didn't feel like they ever did that. They didn't double guys. They didn't try to do quick passes. They didn't do anything that really gave me hope that Zach Taylor was going to neutralize that Giants rush. And so throughout the entire game, the Giants front four could really just go without having to worry about whether or not the defense was going to get there. Like, it just felt like over and over again, Zach Taylor continued to put Joe Burrow in a position where, you know, he's having to throw deep balls, or he's, you know, trying to find guys down the field, when in reality, at the end of the day, Zach Taylor should have spent more time early on the run game, on those quick passes, crossing routes, screen passes, all of those things. You know, the one thing that went well for the Bengals early on was the Joe Burrow 47-yard touchdown run.
Yeah.
Where that was a play where the Giants were in man coverage. The Giants lost contain, and Joe Burrow was able to run basically unadulterated for 47 yards. But other than that, they didn't really do a whole lot. Meanwhile, the Giants, to try and neutralize the Bengals D rush, they were running Daniel Dimes draw plays. They were running draw plays to Tracy. They were hitting quick crossing routes. They were hitting screen passes. They were doing all the things that you would expect to do against a front four that gets pressure. And it just didn't happen on the Bengals front four or offensive side of the ball. And that's something that continues to just be a talking point over and over and over again, where Zach Taylor doesn't necessarily seem to have a strategic game plan to neutralize a defensive strength. And tonight was yet again another example of that.
That's right. Before we move on, we've got to make sure we can't miss it. Our dear friend Michael Rolfe dropping a big one in the chat, $50 super chat from the big man Mike Rolfe. I wish the next two games were the Browns 08 and Bears. Death to the national media narrative of Caleb Williams' love. Is the mojo back? Wild ride. Tonight reminded me of 2021 Bengals with defense dragging the O across the finish line. Good work, gents. Big time thank you, Michael Rolfe. We appreciate all the support. He's always reliable to be in here and causing some kind of ruckus. So big time shout out to Michael Rolfe. And shout out to everyone else who's in here and joining us here late night, 11:45 on the East Coast, and we got over 100 people in here joining us post-game. So that's phenomenal. Great news. Bengals get the win, 17-7 in MetLife. Sunday Night Football woes on pause for a minute. Bengals primetime woes on pause for a minute. The team able to get the win. I'm able to get my first win of the year, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. You can nitpick and go through everything of the game, and the protection was bad, and the offense only scored 17 points, and that's what we just did for basically a half hour. But at the end of the day, the Bengals beat an NFL team, and they've only done that once so far this year, and I don't even know for sure if you can call the Panthers an NFL team. So this is the first real win for this Bengals team, and it looked like a football game. It wasn't just going out there and trying to score more than your opponent on every single drive. And I know, 17-7 or 38-35, what's the difference? It's one side of the ball playing elite and the other side of the ball not. But at the end of the day, this just feels like it's a little bit more replicable. I'm a little bit more optimistic about it. I can grab more from a 17-7 win where Joe Burrow and the offense didn't look great than if the Bengals would have went in there and done the same thing they did against Carolina. I think that's where I'm at right now. This is the best case scenario short of a 40-0 blowout. Like this is everything I wanted to see for the Bengals, being able to overcome and win a game where the offense doesn't score 30. Because honestly, before this game kicked off about 7 o'clock tonight, if you would have asked me, can the Bengals score or win a football game where the offense scores less than 20 points? That would have been a resounding no. I thought there would have been no chance. I thought a 3-touchdown minimum for the opposing offense against this defense. But they shaped up today. They only allowed 7 points. They forced a red zone turnover. They played good football. And I think at the end of the day, that's what all of us wanted to hold on to at some point this season, was a hope that this defense could get to a point where we could be competitive. And sitting at 2-4 now, 1-4 after the first 5 weeks, it's going to be hard to get back into the mix. You're going to have to do a lot of things. You're going to have to go on another historic win streak like we have before. But I think with the defense showing growth like they did tonight, and all of us still knowing what the offense can do when they're on, this is as optimistic as I've been about this team since the start of the year. I think that Chiefs game helped because obviously after the Patriots game, we all kind of chalked that up to just a week one slow start, and then to go toe-to-toe with the two-time defending champions, that made us all feel pretty good. And then to turn around and get our teeth kicked in by the Commanders, we were all back off the boat. But after tonight, this is about as back in as I can be without being back in, because I said I wouldn't be back in unless we were 5-5 after week 10. So I'm not back in. But the defense is doing their job so far to get me there.
Of course you are.
Who could have seen it coming?
Who could have seen it coming? Look, the couple of things that as I'm kind of scrolling through social media that stand out that I think are worth mentioning real quick. First, Trey Hendrickson absolutely dominated tonight. Average distance to the passer on passing plays 3.41 yards on the night. As you guys know, league average 4.57 yards. So he was absolutely dominating all night. And then I think important update that is worth mentioning. Joe Burrow in his postgame press conference said that he just got the wind knocked out of him. That's why he went to the blue tent, but that the sideline doctors also decided he needed to be evaluated for concussion, which obviously since he returned, he passed. So good news on that front as well. And like you mentioned, the Bengals open as 5.5-point favorites now, heading to Cleveland next week, where they haven't won since 2017. 5.5 points, and you haven't won there since 2017 is a big line. And Nick Chubb expected to return for the Browns.
Yeah, a big addition for the Browns. We know how much he means to that Browns team, and it's not that long ago that we were dreading playing Derrick Henry because we didn't know what this run defense was going to be able to do against an elite running back. And obviously it's a little different. Nick Chubb, first game off of injury, probably not going to be a full Nick Chubb that we've come to be afraid of over the last few years, but still very, very scary. In addition to that Browns offense that could make them look more competent, and the defense and special teams look all right there. So if they can figure out the quarterback position and the rest of that offense, I think that football team's going to be okay. But hopefully not next week. Kevin Stefanski did confirm after this week that Jameis Winston would remain on the bench, that they're going to stick with Deshaun Watson next week against the Bengals. So a big win for Bengals fans everywhere, getting to go up against Deshaun Watson, because currently he ranks as the 737th quarterback of all time, according to EPA. That's last since they started tracking the statistics. So fun one for Bengals fans. Hopefully the defense can get another boost and shut out that Browns offense. But no jokes up there on the defensive line, Myles Garrett and Zarius Smith. So going to have to step it up on protection as well.
Yeah, the Browns, first team in 10 years to score under 20 points in each of its first 6 games of the season.
That's right.
Have only scored once in their last 29 drives. A good buddy of mine who is a Cleveland Browns fan sent me this text today, for those of you that are interested. Deshaun Watson plays like the ball is waterlogged and weighs 5 pounds more than it should.
That's good analysis. That's good analysis.
That's what we got going up.
I like that.
But look, Nick Chubb is, when healthy, one of the best running backs in the NFL. And
that's right.
I know that he's been out for a long time with that ACL, but this is another big challenge for that defense to really step up and have an opportunity to show that tonight's outing against the Giants was not a fluke. And if we can go into Cleveland and put up a similar performance against Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb, I'll feel a lot better going into that Philadelphia Eagles matchup. And obviously after that, the Raiders and Ravens. And then you get, after that Raiders game, you've got the Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, all who really pound the rock. So this is the opportunity to really show that you are for real.
The thing about a 1-4 start is when you win a must-win game, you just move on to another must-win game. At some point, I hope we can get to a level where we win a must-win game and we can kind of exhale for a week. But that's not happening this season. Dug ourselves too big of a hole. Every game the rest of the way out is must win. And the rest of the way out, Craig and I will be here to take you through every single one. So thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. Before you get out of here, make sure to like the stream. Big time Hoot A. Feels great to get a win. Oh, buzzer beater. 1999 from our dear friend Michael Rolfe. I'm trying to go to bed and he's keeping us active. might have been the best case scenario for this team going forward. Defense gains confidence. Burrow is pissed in the post-game presser, and this team needs the offense running on all cylinders in Cleveland next week. Must beat the Browns. There we go. Minor spelling error, but at 11:52 p.m., I'm able to get through it. That's big league stuff right there. But thank you, Michael Rolfe, for all the support. Thank you to everyone else in the chat who hung out with me all night tonight watching that game and then joined Craig and I for the post game. Before you get out of here, make sure you like the stream. Big time Who Day. And we will be back Tuesday at 6 p.m. for your weekly Chatterbox Bengals. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We'll see you guys next time.